Elias Thorne navigated the narrow aisle of the economy cabin, the whispers chasing him like a hostile wind. What did he do? They never remove people from first class. The walk was a gauntlet, each footfall a hammer blow reinforcing the message Grant Holloway had sent. You do not belong here. Elias finally reached row 38, a middle seat. He was wedged between a heavy-set man who refused to move and a woman who instantly pressed her body against the window, maximizing the distance between them. His knees were jammed, his custom suit, a shield of professionalism, now an uncomfortable cage. The air in the back of the cabin was noticeably thicker, hotter, the overhead vent broken. He pressed the call button. No response. The attendants in economy were moving with deliberate slowness, avoiding eye contact. When he finally managed to retrieve his tablet, the confined space made it a physical battle. The in-flight Wi-Fi signal was weak, useless for downloading the critical market data needed for his presentation. He asked for water. The flight attendant returned with a half-filled plastic cup, spilling some onto his tablet before hurrying away without apology. This wasn't negligence. It was policy. A notification buzzed on his phone. Luggage alert. Itinerary change detected. He tapped it. His checked bag, containing backup contracts, presentation notes, and a change of clothes, had been rerouted to Salt Lake City. No explanation. This was no coincidence. Grant Holloway was twisting the knife. Elias took a slow, deliberate breath. When they go low, you document everything. Discreetly, he began recording voice memos, noting times, names, and specific actions. He'd learned long ago that for a black man in America, justice required an immaculate paper trail. As he documented the abuse, he noticed a passenger across the aisle, an older Latina woman subtly recording with her phone. Their eyes met, and she gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod of solidarity. The beverage service repeated the indignity. Every passenger around him received a full soda. He received another half-filled cup of water. "This is all we have available, sir," the attendant replied curtly, even though the man next to Elias pointed out the full can of juice just served to another passenger. An hour into the flight, Elias overheard a conversation in the galley. Holloway said to make sure he doesn't get comfortable, one whispered. "I don't get it. Why is Grant so worked up over this guy? Apparently he's some hotshot investor trying to take over," the other replied. "He and Mr. Sterling go way back. Country club buddies. Sterling always gets the royal treatment." The pieces clicked into place. This wasn't about a seat. It was about power, territory, and a deep-seated fear of change. He checked his phone. The video of his removal from first class had already hit social media. The hashtag #BlackCEO removed was trending with millions of views in less than an hour. The comments were flooding in, some passengers on the flight posting their own angles. Elias watched as his humiliation became a viral spectacle. He'd always avoided being reduced to his race, but the spotlight had found him for reasons he hadn't chosen. His executive team, who had already seen the videos, were texting. "Are you okay? Do you need legal intervention?" Elias replied simply, proceeding as planned. He glanced forward where Grant Holloway and Victor Sterling were visible, laughing over champagne. They had no idea that their petty act of prejudice had just been broadcast to the world. By the time the plane touched down, the video had over 3 million views. The airline's generic apology was too little, too late. The damage was spiraling. The sleek 40-story Skybound Airways corporate headquarters rose above downtown, a monument of glass and steel. Elias Daniels emerged from his rideshare, straightening his suit jacket. Despite the flight's indignities, he was immaculate, his composure in armor. 2 security guards stood at the lobby entrance, their eyes tracking him. "Good afternoon," Elias greeted them confidently. "I have a tour meeting with the executive team." The guards exchanged glances. "Name?" One asked, skepticism evident. "Elias Daniels, CEO of Apex Capital." The guard examined his tablet, then looked up with narrowed eyes. "There's a Mr. Daniels expected, but—" He hesitated. Elias understood. "But not someone who looks like you." "I can provide identification," Elias offered calmly. "Wait here, please." The guard stepped away to make a call. Elias maintained his stance, aware of the second guard watching, hand resting near his weapon. In the polished marble floor, he caught his reflection. A successful black man whose Harvard degree and billions in managed assets still couldn't guarantee basic dignity in this space. The first guard returned, tense. "Sir, there seems to be some confusion. The Elias Daniels we're expecting is the CEO handling the major investment." "Yes, that's correct. I am that Elias Daniels." A receptionist approached, her smile tight. "The Elias Daniels we're expecting is a Harvard MBA with 20 years in investment banking, here to finalize a $120 million deal with Skybound Airways." Elias finished her sentence, his voice level but firm. "That Elias Daniels is standing right in front of you." 3 minutes passed, then 5. Other white visitors entered, were verified, and proceeded to the elevators without delay. Elias remained in the lobby, the subject of curious stares. Finally, the security supervisor approached. "Mr. Daniels, we've been unable to verify your appointment. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises." Elias took a measured breath. "Please call Robert Keating, Skybound's CEO. Tell him Elias Daniels is in the lobby." "Sir, if you don't leave voluntarily, we'll need to contact the authorities," the supervisor warned. "By all means," Elias replied, a hint of ice in his voice. "Please do call them. I'd be happy to explain how Skybound is blocking their largest potential investor from a meeting confirmed weeks ago." The supervisor, struck by his calm confidence, reluctantly made another call. Minutes later, the elevator doors opened. Robert Keating, Skybound's silver-haired CEO, emerged, flanked by 2 board members. His face showed confusion, then recognition, followed by horrified understanding as he connected the dots between the viral video he'd just been briefed on and the man standing in his lobby. Robert Keating rushed forward, extending a hand dripping with frantic apology. "Mr. Daniels, I am so sorry. There has been a monumental, unthinkable error." Elias didn't take the hand. He simply held up his phone. "The luggage rerouted to Salt Lake City, Mr. Keating. The broken Wi-Fi, the plastic cup, and the public humiliation to accommodate a VIP who didn't belong in my purchase seat. I assure you this was not an error. This was a coordinated company action." Keating's face paled as he saw the first-class agent, Grant Holloway, step out of the elevator behind him, realizing he was the last of the key players assembled. "Mr. Daniels, I promise you those responsible will be terminated immediately. We will offer a private jet back, a full refund, and a seat on our board for oversight. Please come up to the meeting room. The $120 million wire is waiting for your final signature." Elias looked directly at Keating, then at the man he had replaced, Grant Holloway. He held up his phone again. A notification was displayed on the screen, visible only to him. "Apex Capital, $25,000 transfer complete." The first installment, promised upon digital signature, had cleared during his walk through the lobby. With the entire Skybound leadership team watching, Elias Daniels raised his thumb and, with ice in his veins, pressed the only button that mattered. Reverse transaction. A moment later, a new notification flashed on his screen. "Apex Capital, $25,000 transfer reversed." The atmosphere in the lobby changed from apologetic tension to absolute corporate terror. Keating stumbled back a step, eyes wide. "What did you do?" "I executed a counter-strategy," Elias replied, his voice calm, powerful, and utterly uncompromising. "You assumed my dignity was negotiable. You assumed my capital was desperate. I was here to save your airline. You decided to treat me like a criminal." He looked at Holloway. "You sent me a message on the plane, Mr. Holloway. I am sending you one from your lobby. My $120 million will not be funding an airline where people like me are treated like this." He then addressed Robert Keating, his final words echoing off the marble. "You can't fix this with a voucher or an apology. You have a systemic problem. You had the money, you had the chance, and you let your corporate culture lose it for you." Elias turned and walked out, leaving the stunned Skybound leadership team trapped in their gleaming marble prison. The story of Elias Daniels became more than a viral video. It was a watershed moment. The financial world, the social sphere, and the airline industry erupted. The next morning, Skybound's stock plunged 15%. The loss of $120 million was catastrophic, but the reputational damage was lethal. The viral video was now a core element of a massive public discrimination lawsuit filed by Apex Capital. Grant Holloway, vice president of operations, was immediately fired. Richard Sterling, the VIP passenger, was banned for life. Robert Keating, the CEO, issued a humiliating public mea culpa, But the board's confidence was shaken. Elias Daniels didn't stop there. He used his platform, the spotlight he hadn't chosen, to expose the systemic issue. He established the Equity in Travel Initiative, dedicated to funding the legal battles of minority travelers facing similar discrimination. The true impact wasn't just on Skybound. Across the industry, airlines scrambled to prove they weren't next. Diversity training was implemented, real consequences for discrimination were established, and for the first time, airline boards had to seriously consider the financial liability of prejudice. 6 months later, Elias Daniels, now a hero to millions and an adversary to the corporate old guard, closed a new deal. A $300 million investment in Continental Global, a rival airline committed to true reform. The narrative was complete. The boy from the South Side, who had been taught never to let them make you invisible, had not only claimed his seat but had forced an entire industry to confront its reflection. He had proven that in the modern economy, excellence and capital are the ultimate arbiters of belonging, and that the price of prejudice could cost an airline its future. The power of Elias Daniels' counter-strategy wasn't just the $120 million he pulled, it was the sheer force of his dignity. He turned his personal humiliation into a moment of corporate accountability, proving that in the age of viral video, culture is capital. What would you have done if you were Elias in that lobby? Would you have accepted the apology and the board seat? Or would you have pressed the reverse transaction button? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you and you believe in turning injustice into power, hit that like button and subscribe to join our community. Every week we bring you true stories of ordinary people who face down systemic issues and change the world. Thank you for watching. And remember, your worth is not negotiable. The hotel suite door closed behind Elias Daniels with a soft click. Only then, in the complete privacy of the luxury room, did the CEO finally allow the mask to crack. The tremor that ran through his hands as he removed his tie was the release of an entire day's worth of adrenaline, contempt, and calculated restraint. He sank onto the edge of the bed, motionless, the silence a stark contrast to the boardroom's tension. He walked to the window, the city lights blurring before his eyes. Memories flooded back. His mother, Mrs. Lena Daniels, walking him past elite restaurants in their city, telling him, "Someday, Elias, you'll eat wherever you want, and nobody will tell you that you don't belong." His first internship mistaken for janitorial staff. The endless subtle aggressions that fueled his determination to conquer spaces where people who looked like him were rarities. He finished his drink and dialed a familiar number. "I saw the video," Professor Dr. Alan Carter answered without preamble. "You okay, son?" "I'm managing," Elias replied. "But Skybound just made a critical mistake. They're expecting me to be so grateful for their money that I'll swallow this insult. What they don't understand is that I've been swallowing these insults my entire career." "Good," Dr. Carter observed, "because this has created an opportunity. The optics are catastrophic for them. Stock down 6% at closing. What's your play?" Elias began outlining his strategy, his voice growing firmer as the plan materialized. This wasn't about personal vindication. It was about systemic change. He tasked his team, COO Lena Robinson and General Counsel Ben Chen, with discreet research into Grant Holloway's past. Within hours, they uncovered 5 prior discrimination complaints, all quietly settled, painting a clear pattern of protection by the old boys network. "He's been protected by Robert Keating for years," Ben concluded. As midnight approached, Elias formulated detailed, non-negotiable demands. A complete overhaul of Skybound's hiring and promotion, mandatory bias training with measurable outcomes, a diverse board expansion, and, critically, Grant Holloway's immediate removal. Elias then called his bank and issued the critical instruction: place a complete freeze on the $25 million initial transfer to Skybound Airways, citing a suspected fraudulent transaction. Minutes later, the phone rang. Robert Keating himself. "Elias, there seems to be an issue with the payment." "Yes, there is," Elias replied calmly. "The issue is that your VP of Operations publicly humiliated me based on my race, endangered my physical safety by involving armed security, and deliberately sabotaged my luggage, all while I was en route to provide your company with $120 million. The line went silent for several seconds. When Keating spoke again, his tone was different, edged with desperation. "What do you want?" "Justice," Elias answered simply. And accountability. My team will send specific terms tomorrow. By morning, Skybound stock had plummeted 12%. CNBC ran the headline, "Discrimination Incident Costs Airline $400 million in Market Value Overnight." Robert Keating held an emergency press conference, promising a thorough internal review. Grant Holloway stood beside him, his face a careful mask of corporate concern. "We at Skybound have always valued diversity," Keating declared, reading from a statement. Elias's email pinged with a confidential communication from Keating. "Elias, I've reviewed your demands. The training and hiring revisions are reasonable. However, removing Grant Holloway is simply not feasible. He's been with the company 30 years and has significant board support. Can we discuss alternatives?" Elias did not respond. The terms were non-negotiable. Meanwhile, Grant Holloway was orchestrating his counter-offensive. He met with his allies, including board members. Sarah Reeves, the most senior among them, was skeptical. "The video is pretty damning, Grant. He didn't create anything." Holloway ignored her, pivoting to his talking points. "This is a calculated attack. Daniels is a financial shark exploiting racial tensions to weaken us and acquire the company at a depressed value. His ultimate goal isn't investing. It's taking control of Skybound." His narrative quickly seeped into financial news. A Bloomberg analyst questioned Apex Capital's opportunistic tactics. The Wall Street Journal ran a profile examining Elias's aggressive acquisition strategy. Holloway contacted Victor Sterling, the VIP passenger, instructing him to spread rumors through his network. Daniels is unreliable, emotional, and playing the race card to cover financial weakness. Immediately, 3 potential Apex clients postponed meetings, and a major bank placed their pending loan agreement under review. Elias watched these developments with calm calculation. "They're saying Apex is over-leveraged," Lena reported. 2 hedge funds have reduced their positions." "Exactly as expected," Elias responded. "How's our financial position?" "Rock solid," Lena confirmed. "We have contingency liquidity, and Skybound is desperate. Their Q2 projections required your investment. They'll miss earnings targets catastrophically without it." Elias opened a secure folder labeled Holloway Files. His investigators had been busy, compiling a damning history. 5 separate incidents of black executives being undermined, 2 female VPs forced out, all complaints buried under settlements and NDAs. But the most damning evidence had arrived that afternoon. Security camera footage from the Skybound gate showing Holloway explicitly instructing the crew to remove Elias from his seat. As Elias reviewed the materials, his secure phone line rang. "Mr. Daniels, this is Sarah Stevens, the flight attendant from yesterday's flight. Miss Stevens, I appreciate you reaching out." "What they did was wrong," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Mr. Holloway ordered us to remove you specifically. He said to create a disturbance if necessary. Anything to get you out of first class before takeoff. Are you willing to provide a statement confirming this?" A pause. "I could lose my job." "I understand the risk," Elias acknowledged. "But this is bigger than one incident. My legal team can ensure you're protected." After the call, Elias received an urgent security alert. Threat assessment elevated. Racial slurs and death threats were appearing on fringe forums. Holloway's counteroffensive had gone beyond financial circles. Then, the most alarming news just before midnight: security breach detected. Holloway accessing private Apex files through a third-party contractor. Sensitive client information compromised. Holloway had crossed into illegal territory, a desperate move from someone losing control. Robert Keating's official statement hit the news. Skybound CEO issues statement supporting VP Grant Holloway. Questions motives behind viral video. Keating had chosen sides. The corporate machine was closing ranks, systematically reframing the incident as a calculated attack by Elias. Elias turned off the television. Oddly calm. He'd expected this moment when the power structure revealed its self-protective reflexes. "Your move, Grant," he murmured. "Keep digging your hole deeper." Dawn found Elias already at work in a secure command center he'd established in a different hotel. "Good morning, team. Status updates, please." Mira Chen, head of Pinnacle's investigative unit, began. "We've identified 17 former Skybound employees who experienced discrimination under Holloway. 7 are willing to speak on record." "Excellent," Elias nodded. Benchen added, We've documented 46 regulatory violations at Skybound over the past 3 years under Holloway's oversight. FAA filing prepared if needed. Rahul, the cybersecurity expert, confirmed. Holloway used Clearview Securities to access our systems. We've secured everything and implemented honeypot traps, fake data sets they'll think are valuable, but will actually help us trace their activities. As the meeting progressed, Elias received a text from an unknown number. Need to talk. Not safe on phone. Coffee shop across from hotel. 8:30 a.m. Sarah Stevens, Elias Daniels left the command center, his security detail a quiet shadow. The exchange with Sarah Stevens, the flight attendant, was the critical turning point. At the busy downtown coffee shop, Sarah Stevens looked pale but determined. She slid a small USB drive across the table. This is the flight manifest for 1876, the internal memos regarding Mr. Sterling, and a voice memo I recorded in the galley. It proves Mr. Holloway gave us the specific order. Miss Stevens, Elias said, you are risking everything. I will ensure your safety and future, but you need to know what you're giving me. I know, she replied, her eyes meeting his. I watched what they did to you. Then I saw what they were willing to do to me to cover it up. I'm tired of working for a company that makes us treat people like that. Elias secured the drive. He had the complete picture. Holloway's illegal activities, the CEO's complicity, and the first-hand testimony of a witness. He returned to the command center. The meeting is over, he declared, addressing his team. It's time for the final move. He contacted Skybound. Robert Keating immediately agreed to a one-on-one meeting. Elias went alone to the boardroom where he had reversed the transaction days earlier. Keating was all apologies and desperation. Elias will implement all your reforms. The training, the board seats. Just unfreeze the $25 million and proceed with the investment. Elias placed the USB drive on the polished mahogany table. Mr. Keating, your VP of Operations engaged in a conspiracy to commit racial discrimination, followed by corporate espionage and federal wire fraud against my company. He gestured to the drive. That contains the evidence. The internal manifest showing no special needs passenger, the gate security footage, the flight attendant's testimony, and the traces of Mr. Holloway's access to my firm's protected data. Keating's face crumpled. Grant. He went too far. He went exactly as far as the culture you protected allowed him to go, Elias countered. Here are your options. 1. I file a comprehensive civil rights and fraud lawsuit tomorrow, submitting all this evidence to the Department of Justice, the SEC, and the FAA. Skybound's stock will go to zero, and you and Mr. Holloway will face criminal investigations. He paused, letting the silence fill the room. 2. You immediately terminate Grant Holloway, remove the board members who supported him, freeze all his assets, and sign a commitment to my full structural reform demands, including the diversity hiring and measurable bias outcomes. Only then will I release the $25 million freeze and consider moving forward with the remaining $95 million. Keating didn't hesitate this time. He knew the $120 million was now a ransom for the life of his company. We accept option 2. What about the $95 million? Elias picked up the USB drive. That, Mr. Keating, depends entirely on your progress over the next 6 months. I will be watching. Elias Daniels walked out of Skybound headquarters for the final time. The battle was over. He had not only defended his dignity, but had installed himself as the ultimate authority on the conscience of the airline. Elias Daniels proved that sometimes the greatest leverage isn't just money, it's uncompromised truth backed by strategic power. The price of prejudice was the loss of a VP, the removal of a CEO's protection, and a complete overhaul of a resistant corporate culture. If this is your first time here, and you believe in turning corporate injustice into transformative change, hit that like button and subscribe. We bring you powerful stories of accountability and courage every week. What do you think was the most critical piece of evidence Elias gathered? Was it the video, the data breach, or the flight attendant's testimony? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Elias Daniels sat at the corner table, his back to the wall, watching the coffee shop doors. Sarah Stevens arrived, her exhaustion evident, her eyes darting nervously. I can't stay long, she whispered. They're watching us. Crew who might support you are being reassigned, effectively silenced. Thank you for taking this risk, Elias said sincerely. Sarah placed a USB drive on the table. It's all here. Recordings of Grant's instructions before your flight. Documentation of other incidents. Internal emails about passenger reclassification based on appearance. Her hand trembled. They're trying to buy my silence. Grant offered a promotion if I sign a statement saying you were disruptive. If I don't, I'll be downsized. As she rose to leave, she added, check the recording from March 15th. Another black executive, similar situation. Grant called it seat reclamation in his email. With the USB secure, Elias returned to the command center. The evidence was invaluable. Detailed documentation of numerous discrimination incidents, all bearing Grant Holloway's digital fingerprints. Most damning was the recording of Grant instructing Sarah, I don't care what his boarding pass says. Find a reason to move him. Victor Sterling needs that seat and he doesn't want to sit next to, well, you know. Make it happen. A clear pattern emerged. At least 9 instances where non-white passengers with first-class tickets had been reaccommodated when certain VIPs requested their seats. By mid-afternoon, the situation escalated. The security team received a concerning update. Subject Holloway has contacted Clearview Securities again. Surveillance indicates possible targeting of Stevens. Elias immediately dispatched protection for Sarah. Hours later, the caution proved justified when Sarah called, badly shaken. Someone broke into my apartment. Nothing taken, but my personal files were searched and my work laptop is missing. The next escalation was violent. Elias's lead investigator, Derek Washington, was forced off the road by an SUV. He escaped with minor injuries, but the message was clear. This wasn't random. Elias flew Derek's family in for support and doubled security for everyone involved. What had begun as a case of discrimination had evolved into something darker, a battle where intimidation and corporate sabotage were the weapons. Robert Keating called Elias, his voice betraying deep stress. Elias, this has gone far enough. Let's resolve this like businessmen. We'll offer you a board seat and a substantial settlement if you'll release the frozen funds and sign an NDA. Walter, this stopped being a business matter the moment your VP endangered my safety, Elias replied. Now it's about accountability. Multiple employees, multiple incidents, plus security footage, emails, and recordings. The pattern is undeniable. Elias's refusal forced Grant Holloway into a public reversal. Skybound released a statement claiming Elias was disruptive and had voluntarily moved to economy after being offered compensation. The blatant lie collapsed instantly as passenger videos contradicted every aspect of the statement. Skybound's credibility imploded. Yet Grant remained defiant on CNBC. This is a targeted campaign by Apex Capital to devalue Skybound for acquisition. Elias Daniels is playing the race card to distract from his predatory business tactics. That evening, Elias received an unexpected message from Sarah Reeves, the senior Skybound board member. This has gone too far. Some of us want to talk privately. Elias smiled. The fracture had begun. The next day, Elias Daniels sat across from veteran news anchor Catherine Reynolds in CNN's studio. His composure was magnetic. Can you walk us through what happened? Reynolds asked. What's most concerning, Elias concluded, is that this wasn't an isolated incident. We've uncovered a pattern of similar discrimination at Skybound, particularly involving Grant Holloway. He was professional yet passionate, firm yet reasonable. The impact was immediate. Hold Skybound accountable trended globally. Skybound stock plunged another 8% in after-hours trading. The following morning, Grant Holloway's disastrous Fox Business interview provided the contrast Elias needed. Holloway appeared evasive, entitled, and increasingly agitated, fueling new viral memes. I find it offensive that any time a person of color doesn't get exactly what they want, they immediately claim discrimination. By midday, Skybound's market capitalization had lost over $800 million, yet Grant wasn't finished. Through his connections, he planted a completely fabricated story in the New York Post, suggesting Elias had a sealed criminal record. The attack was desperate but effective, forcing institutional investors to inquire about the rumors. The imposing federal courthouse dominated the skyline. This was the emergency hearing on Skybound's motion to force the release of the frozen $25 million. Elias Daniels sat with his legal team. Grant Holloway and Robert Keating sat behind their lawyers, Judge Alistair Hughes, a Reagan appointee known for strict adherence to contract law, presided. Skybound's lead counsel, Elizabeth Morgan, argued, "This is a straightforward contract dispute. Mr. Daniels illegally reversed the payment in a vindictive response to a minor customer service issue." Ben Chen for Apex Capital countered, "Force majeure, Your Honor. Mr. Daniels was physically removed from his rightful seat based on racial discrimination, creating conditions that fundamentally altered the relationship." Judge Hughes interrupted Morgan. "Ms. Morgan, I've seen the videos like everyone else. That was no ordinary incident." Yet the judge's question soon suggested a deep sympathy with Skybound's position. During a recess, Elias whispered to Ben, "The judge knows Grant. Same country club. Hughes's son interned at Skybound in Grant's department last summer. Too late for recusal." Ben confirmed, "We build an ironclad record for appeal." When Grant Holloway took the stand, he was smooth and authoritative. "Mr. Daniels has manufactured this controversy to extort concessions. Our flight crew made a routine seating adjustment." Ben methodically dismantled his testimony, but Judge Hughes was unmoved. The pattern was undeniable. Judge Hughes systematically favored Skybound's arguments, finding procedural reasons to exclude Apex's strongest evidence. Then came the most damaging blow. The judge ruled that Sarah Stevens's testimony was inadmissible on a technicality. Her employment contract contained an arbitration clause that Skybound successfully argued prevented her from testifying in federal court. Without the flight attendant's direct account of Holloway's instructions, Elias's case weakened substantially. As the court day ended, Judge Hughes announced, "I'll issue my ruling tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Based on today's proceedings, I'm inclined to grant Skybound's motion and order the immediate release of funds." Grant caught Elias's eye across the room, his expression triumphant. The system had closed ranks, and it seemed the Old Boys Network had just won the final, decisive round. That night, for the first time since the incident began, doubt crept in for Elias. The costs were soaring, his family was receiving threats, his nephew was harassed, and the judge was compromised. A call from Dr. Alan Carter stabilized him. "They're targeting your family because they're losing on the merits," his mentor observed. "This is how power protects itself, by making the personal cost of challenging it unbearable." Elias knew the truth. He'd founded Apex Capital not just to create wealth, but to transform spaces where people like him had been excluded. This was part of that mission. The next morning, Elias made his final calculated public move before the verdict. He appeared at a press conference with the families of 7 other individuals who had experienced similar discrimination on Skybound flights. Their collective testimony painted a devastating picture of systematic bias. The media landscape completely shifted. That evening, Elias received word. Several Skybound board members had requested private meetings separate from Keating or Holloway. The judicial setback had been overshadowed by the overwhelming weight of public evidence. Grant Holloway, protected in the courthouse, was now exposed everywhere else. Elias's team was ready. The legal defeat was merely a step in a larger strategic victory. The battle for justice was reaching its climax, and Elias Daniels had just shown his adversary that the power of the financial market, unlike the courtroom, could not be bought or controlled. The ruling came down exactly as expected. Judge Alistair Hughes ordered the immediate release of the frozen funds, plus punitive damages against Apex Capital. His opinion dismissed the discrimination claims as opportunistic leverage tactics. Grant Holloway's victory lap was immediate. Skybound stock rebounded 7% by midday, and the narrative that the incident was overblown social media drama seemed to be taking hold. Elias Daniels watched from a secure location. Judge Hughes gave them exactly what they wanted, Ben Chen reported. "We've already filed our appeal and judicial misconduct complaint." "How long until those are heard?" Elias asked. "Months, potentially. The system works slowly, which benefits those already in power. Then we accelerate." Elias's strategic pivot began subtly. First, his team released documentation of Judge Hughes's connections to Grant Holloway. Photographs of them golfing, text messages discussing the case, to trusted investigative journalists. The evidence immediately tainted the legal victory. Ethics experts began questioning the legitimacy of the ruling on national news. But the true turning point came unexpectedly. Elias's secure line rang. "Sarah Stevens." "They're coming after me," she began, her voice shaking. "Grant offered me a promotion to international routes if I sign a statement contradicting my testimony. When I refused, he threatened to fire me. Are you safe? For now. But there's more." Grant approached another flight attendant, Lisa Corman, with the same offer. She recorded him. Explicit threats, explicit instructions to lie about what happened on your flight. Within the hour, Apex Capital's security team relocated both Sarah and Lisa. Lisa's recording of Grant's intimidation attempt was devastating. Clear evidence of witness tampering, a federal offense. The next morning, Elias's team submitted the recording and the comprehensive documentation of Grant's pattern of discrimination directly to the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. Simultaneously, they connected Sarah with producers from 60 Minutes. The interview was scheduled to air that Sunday evening. Maximum impact for maximum viewership. Grant Holloway, sensing the shifting momentum, grew desperate. Through his network, he gained access to Apex Capital's confidential client database, planting fabricated evidence suggesting financial irregularities. An anonymous whistleblower filed complaints with the SEC and FBI against Elias. What Grant hadn't anticipated was Elias's foresight. Months earlier, Elias had implemented extraordinary security protocols with blockchain verification. The fabricated evidence Grant planted was digitally watermarked, creating irrefutable proof of corporate espionage and false reporting to federal agencies, both serious felonies. The Sunday broadcast proved catastrophic for Skybound. Sarah Stevens, poised and credible, detailed Grant's systematic discrimination. Lisa Corman played the damning recording of his intimidation. 6 other former employees shared similar experiences. The final segment questioned Skybound's safety record under Grant's operational leadership. Skybound stock plummeted 20% in pre-market trading. The FBI confirmed an active investigation into allegations of witness tampering and obstruction of justice related to Skybound. In a final, frantic gambit, Grant orchestrated a raid on Apex Capital's New York offices, using his law enforcement connections to amplify the fabricated evidence. The images of FBI agents removing boxes from Apex hit financial news immediately. But the FBI, after examining Elias's evidence, quickly recognized the planted nature of the evidence. The investigation pivoted to focus solely on Grant Holloway. The narrative completely reversed. As dawn broke, Robert Keating called an emergency board meeting. The walls were closing in, but Grant had one final card to play. Inside the boardroom, Elias's investigative team revealed the final, devastating evidence. Grant Holloway had maintained a complex network of offshore accounts, including a concealed 5% ownership stake in the firm used to hack Apex Capital. They found payments linked directly to the intimidation of Sarah and Lisa. He was being paid to maintain the status quo, Elias realized, to keep qualified minority executives out of leadership. In the Skybound boardroom, Grant fought for his professional life. "Walter knew everything," he shouted at Robert Keating, pulling out emails and texts showing the leadership's complicity in discriminatory practices. Federal agents arrived with warrants. Tipped off, Grant attempted to delete incriminating files, an act of evidence destruction captured by security cameras, providing clear obstruction of justice charges. The board voted unanimously to terminate Grant Wellington for cause. Skybound issued a public statement pledging full cooperation. Robert Keating held a press conference characterizing Grant as a rogue executive protecting the institution at the expense of his former ally. "We don't just want Grant Holloway removed," Elias told his team. "We want systems that prevent the next Grant Holloway from gaining power." 6 weeks later, Elias Daniels stood before a very different Skybound board. Grant was facing federal charges. Robert Keating was forced to resign. Sarah Reeves, elevated to interim CEO, presented Elias with Skybound's newly adopted anti-discrimination and inclusion framework, a comprehensive overhaul with measurable benchmarks. "We need partners who will hold us accountable," Sarah stated. "Who better than the person who exposed our failures so publicly?" Elias had not merely won a lawsuit, he had won governance. He finalized a renewed $150 million investment under substantially revised terms, gaining expanded equity and permanent seats on Skybound's ethics and compensation committees. Most significantly, The airline established an independent oversight council with authority to investigate discrimination complaints. 3 months after the original incident, Elias boarded a Skybound flight as the newly appointed chairman of their expanded board. As he settled into his seat, he noticed a new reality: diverse flight attendants in premium cabins, inclusive imagery, and a new customer bill of rights. His phone buzzed. Judge Alistair Hughes had been removed from the federal bench following a judicial misconduct investigation. The flight attendant approached with a genuine smile. "Can I get you anything, Mr. Chairman?" "Just a water." "Thank you," Elias replied. This time she brought it in a proper glass filled to the top. The glass wasn't just full. It was a symbol of a fundamental shift, a new era where financial power and moral conviction had dismantled a system of entrenched prejudice. Elias Daniels' story is a blueprint for confronting systemic racism in corporate America. He proved that financial leverage, when combined with irrefutable evidence and strategic public pressure, can force transformative change. Accountability requires dismantling the systems of protection, from biased judges to complicit executives. What moment in this epic battle resonated most deeply with you? Have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination that went unchallenged because of power imbalances? Comment below and share your thoughts. If you believe in using whatever influence you have to create positive change, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more stories of courage and accountability. Share this video with someone who needs to understand how discrimination can be effectively challenged.